A little modification on this one. They're changing out the old compressor with a more modern day. Everything has been modernized with newer pulleys, newer higher output alternator. You know, I got the little blackout package going on here in the front. And so that was the only thing changed. They didn't change the expansion valve. It's still the old receiver dryer. Somebody did do a newer style. This is 6mm tube and fin. And I have 1 pound 12 ounces, 1 pound 13 ounces. It's only 64 degrees outside or so. And so it's pretty cool. They have, the wiring is not figured out. There's no trinary switch inside here. So they have to jump to get the compressor to come on because the original electrically was not working. So right now we're just testing things by jumping the compressor, and they're jumping the condenser. The only problem with jumping the condenser, not going off a pressure switch. Say you had a trinary switch in here and it was rated to come on at say 250 PSI or 225, whatever, and shut off at 150, 175, something like that. You could kind of maintain an average and take some superheat and subcool so long it would stay running long enough, but it's too cool today to do that, especially in the shade. And bypassing these high output little electric fans is cooling off the condenser so much you can't get no high side pressure. So it's only 116 PSI on this old car with this old system, with this POA valve or suction throttling valve, whichever one you want to call it. And I can't get no pressure, and because the fans are on all the time, because it's just too cold. So I'm old schooling it, winging it, and everyone's going to go, oh, but what pressure are you going after? I'm not going after a pressure on this one, because the pressure on the low side is being maintained by this constant valve right here to keep the evaporator pressure steady. That's what this does. Your superheat is controlled by your expansion valve. This will control your pressure so you have steady temperature, so it keeps running all the time. And by doing that, you don't get that hot cold feeling on your knuckles or in your face, because you have this positive pressure that is always kept constant in the evaporator. So I'm just old school, nothing scientific. I'm going by to where I just have a little itty bitty amount of bubbles still coming up the receiver dryer here, because this is 134. We're not doing with R12. I know I have a huge, look at the size of this reservoir. That's a big ass freaking receiver. So even if I did go a little bit more and I cleared it, good enough for government work. This is such a pretty bulletproof system. It'll work no matter what. He's not going to put in a trinary switch in the high side, because this is how the customer did it. The technician who's working here on this system, the only responsibility was to do this system right here, not modify anything. So the question was, how am I going to get it to work? And I told him, well, you can get one of the old school 1970s fan operating kits for turning on the fans, and you get one that you can dial in the cut in and the cut out switch going by temperature. Now let's say if we went off the PT chart and we look at that and we want to trigger the high side pressure at, let's say, 230 psi. So you go to your PT chart, get close to that range, up or down. It won't be perfect on this setup, but get the temperature that represents close, because we're having superheated gas coming out of the high side discharge. And you can either strap it to somewhere in the middle of the condenser, so it makes this pass right here, it goes to the other side. Oh, this one doesn't oh, this is a one pass deal, I think. No, 2 passes, I think. It goes, see this header, see where the liquid comes out the bottom, and we have the top. Somewhere down here there must be a little section that cuts it off, and it passes most of the refrigerant in the beginning of this header right here on the inside, and it probably goes down, like, let's say it went down 3/4 of the way, and then it passed it going through the back tubes, And as you see, the tubes bend and they come around, and then it passes it again in the front. It comes down this front header here where my finger is going, but then there will be no separator here. And let's say it went 3/4 of the way down, and that gas that has removed most of the heat will drop down, let's say to the top bottom 1/3, bottom 1/4, whatever, and it'll pass in those bottom on the outside in the front, and it'll come around. It'll hit those tubes right there. You see those tubes? And then it'll make a turn, and it'll go on the back tubes. It'll come along the back, and it'll come out right below, above here. It'll be blocked off from the top, and that supposedly subcooled, almost liquid refrigerant. It's not all liquid, and it will come out that liquid line. Then it'll drop into the receiver as a gaseous and liquid combination into the receiver. The liquid will all go to the bottom. It'll fill up. The tube, the straw that is connected to the sight glass, goes all the way to the bottom and just sits off the bottom. And you're basically filling up, stacking the refrigerant. Remember that word, stacking? Brian Orb's HVAC school channel, or Greg's HVAC Service LLC, or Ty Brimmerman's class, Love to HVAC. Look them up on YouTube, and they talk about refrigerant stacking. You'd be stacking refrigerant up here, and then that will give you your clear sight glass, which is absolutely not the best method to use. But using anything on a jerry-rig system that's not going to be set up perfectly in the first place, using a temperature probe to cycle the fan, using a temperature probe to cycle the compressor, nothing's going to be perfect anyway. But the good thing is it's on a pretty durable system, and it will work. I would like to come back if they have this one again in the summertime when it's like 90 degrees outside, and check it again instead of being like 64 degrees outside. But it'll work. See you guys. Oh yeah, and let's see what that nice little oily stuff down there. It's about a gallon or two low on refrigerant, I mean coolant. Interesting.